Welcome to the Flight Club Podcast, a woman's guide to leaning out. We give you a behind-the-scenes look at business launch and growth through the stories of successful female entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Felina Hansen, founder and CEO of Hera Hub.
Hello and welcome. I am so looking forward to my conversation today with Dr. Roshawnna Novellus. She is the founder and CEO of EnrichHER, which is a debt investment platform that connects female entrepreneurs with leaders who want to earn 15% return on their investment. Of course, also while fueling the growth of women-led businesses. Dr. Novellus is a gender equality advocate who believes in economic empowerment and inclusive economic growth. She has served on the Commission on Women for the City of Atlanta and was honored as one of the Women Who Mean Business by the Atlanta Business Chronicle, one of the 40 Under 40 by Georgia Trend, and a Halcyon Fellow for Social Impact as one of the top 25 disruptors and innovators in the tech segment. So welcome to the show today, Roshawnna.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So let's dive into your background. I want to learn about you prior to even launching EnrichHER. Tell us your story. Take us back.
Yeah, so I grew up in San Diego, California, near the border of Mexico, and was used to living in a super diverse environment in the community. There are people whose first language was in English, or people who are in the military, all different races, and that really was the foundation of who I became as a person who's used to all different kinds of people in an ecosystem. And so after graduating from San Diego High School as valedictorian, I ended up going to UC Santa Cruz south of the Bay Area and double majored in computer engineering and economics. And I was the first Black woman to be in the School of Engineering there. So it was a stark contrast from growing up in San Diego to what I experienced in college. People weren't used to smart women who were, setting the curve on exams. After that, I said, let me go to the East Coast because there are a lot more people like me. So ended up going to Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute for my master's in New York. And then I moved to Washington, D.C. and got my doctorate at George Washington University while working at Johns Hopkins University. And in D.C., I primarily focused on terrorism work. So I used my background in computer engineering and algorithms to create simulations and economic experiments to figure out what would happen if bad things would happen to our country. So what would happen in terms of the economic damage, psychological damage, and whatnot. And
Wow.
that's what I used to do.
That's okay. Wait, I just have to pause here for a second, Roshawnna, because I mean, wow, what a series of amazing, incredible accomplishments. My goodness. How old were you when you finished your PhD program?
I was 27. I was working full time, so I still finished in 4 years, even though I was working full time at Johns Hopkins. And so that just shows you how aggressive I am and how much willpower I have. I actually love school. That's pretty much obvious, right? I love to learn new things. And I finished at that age.
My goodness. Congratulations. That's incredible. Wow. So you accomplished a ton by the age of 27. Talk about some of the work you were doing at that time, and then what did you go on to do next?
Yeah, so I used to manage teams to figure out what would happen in terms of bad scenarios. For instance, I used to monitor aircraft over the White House. So I would design simulations that would detect aircraft if they were too close to the White House, and there would be a response that needed to happen. So I would develop the software that would alert, the proper authorities to intervene in those kinds of cases. So that was my life in DC, to kind of run projects, to think of all kinds of things that could happen that we didn't want to happen, and then how to use software to direct the response to be as quick as possible.
My goodness. Wow. Well, thank you for your incredible work and protecting us. Much, much appreciated. Wow. My goodness. So what was next?
So after doing that for about 8 years, I just had to look inward and say, hey, is this what I really was called to do? I have all these skills and I have all this willpower, but is this important thing that I'm doing in alignment with my life purpose? And the answer was no. And so at that point, this was in about 9 years ago, is when I decided to leave DC, move to Atlanta, and decide to jump into entrepreneurship.
Wow, my goodness. So why Atlanta?
Atlanta was a nostalgic place for me. So growing up in California and going to college in California, as I mentioned earlier, there wasn't a lot of diversity in the technical arena. I was always the only one. When I started working at Hewlett Packard when I was 17, out of 800 people in the division, there are only 3 women. And when I came to Atlanta and spent a summer at Georgia Tech, they had at least 30% of the students in the School of Engineering were women. And I thought that was amazing. So when I decided where to move to, I wanted to move to a place where there were a lot of other people like me, so that it would be easier for me to navigate.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. So what did you do when you landed in Atlanta?
So I set off to try to figure out the best way for me to be an entrepreneur. And they always say you should start off at a place where you would work for free. And so what I did was volunteer to do tax returns for the homeless. And I did that for 2 years. There's so many people who are the working homeless who have jobs and no place to live, and they live in these shelters, and they actually get really big refunds. And a lot of times they don't know how to navigate that process. And so I said, let me figure out. I love doing taxes. I don't know why. It's strange. But
God bless you.
Yeah, I was like, I can do this for people. It's free. I knew I had to focus on something money related. And so that was my entry point. After that, I pivoted a couple of times and decided to focus on helping entrepreneurs with access to capital. So when I decided to do that, the first thing that I tried was to start a nonprofit called Bootstrap Capital that would bring together entrepreneurs who are women and or people of color to meet investors that are women and or people of color. And we're able to have these pitch summits and get these companies funded. But soon thereafter, I realized that we could only help a handful of entrepreneurs by doing that business model. And there's a much bigger problem out there across the country. Every city you go to has someone who has a great idea that needs capital. So I said, Roshawnna, you need to use your skill sets and algorithms, software, marketing to design a platform that will enable women to get access to capital in an easy way.
Awesome. Great. Well, such a needed thing as many of us know, and just looking at the data around funding for women, both on the debt, but even more so on the equity side, of course, there's a huge gap. So fast forward for us, I see here and read in your intro, you did the Halcyon Incubator back up in DC not too long ago. is that incubator what pulled you back to DC? Did you move back to DC? Talk about that program a little bit.
So it's interesting when you start a new idea and people are used to you in the city, they don't really pay attention. So a lot of people told me, sometimes you have to reinvent yourself in a new place. I'm like, even a place I've already lived? They're like, you haven't been there in 9 years, so no one remembers you, which is true. So I applied to the Halcyon Incubator for the idea behind EnrichHER, because we're a social impact company that wants to provide affordable capital to women-led businesses. And going back up to DC last year, I had a completely different experience. So the first time just dealing with terrorists, national security, and then this time dealing with philanthropists, impact investors, people who want to see the world as a better place. And it's interesting that those two different ecosystems exist in the same city and really don't touch one another. And so being at the Halcyon Incubator really made me feel extremely supported. I received so much support, and I still do. They still send me emails at least once per week. So I know that incubator has a deep reason why behind why they exist. And they really are picking ventures that both have an impact to society and are sustainable, scalable businesses. So I really appreciate them for that experience.
Fantastic. And then even most recently, you were also in the TechStars program and what they call their TechStars Anywhere Accelerator. Talk about that. What was different about that program than the Halcyon program, and just how did that help you?
So TechStars is like the Harvard of the accelerator program. They're ranked in every publication, and they're ranked because when people hear the TechStars name, a lot of investors jump in on supporting those entrepreneurs in the ecosystem, and they have access to a strong network. So they have their own basically version of LinkedIn for everyone who's ever gone through TechStars, which has over 1,800 startup founders and investors. So the network is really, really strong. And the Anywhere program is their newest program. So the Anywhere program's mission is to find amazing entrepreneurs who are distributed across the country who may not be able to just pick up and move to a new city. They're more established people in their career or in their life, and maybe, like moving to a different city would prevent them from participating. So it's actually the most competitive TechStar program that exists. They receive more applications than any other program. And I believe there were 1,200 different startups that applied, and 10 of us were selected. And most of us have distributed teams. And so some people in my team are still in DC. Some are in Atlanta. We have some team members in Richmond. And that is true for 70% of the companies. We have one company where the founder is 7 months pregnant right now. We have one company led by 2 veterans. They're twins in the cohort. So it's all these amazing people who the industry norm would say, hey, they can't participate, or because we would be required to move, it would be hard for everyone to participate. I know on my team, almost every one of my team members is married and has children, so they couldn't, leave their family just because they believe in EnrichHER. And so this really was helpful because with the Halcyon Incubator, I was the only one who was able to move to DC. Everyone else stayed in their location. But for this program, because we meet mostly virtually, every single person on my team has been able to participate. So the program started in Los Angeles. Last week, we were in Boulder, Colorado, where we actually were able to meet with the founders of TechStar. The CEO of Starbucks came to meet us. All these amazing people flew in from across the country who support TechStars just to meet us. So it's definitely a unique experience to have us all together in the city in this intense fashion. And then we're ending up in New York in a couple weeks. So it's fantastic. I love it.
Wonderful. Yeah. I mean, Techstars, to your point, has an extremely notable reputation in the industry. So I'm so glad to hear about the Techstars Anywhere program. And in fact, Ryan Cooter, who I believe is maybe the managing director of that program, is here in San Diego. Yes. And I serve on the board of Startup San Diego with him. So love all the connection points. And you also have your own podcast as well. Is that right? The Startup Funding podcast?
Yes. It's on pause right now, even though everyone could listen to it. So with Startup Funding, I actually interviewed VCs, angel investors, and entrepreneurs who successfully raised their seed or Series A round, and just talked to them about the whole process. And so the whole purpose is to be a resource for people who want to go through that process to learn from these investors. So there's several episodes that were recorded, and that is still available for anyone to download.
Love it. Cool. Okay. Well, I want to get to EnrichHER. We talked a little bit about it through the course of the conversation here, but just break down the basics of it. What is it? Again, kind of recap. You saw a gap in the market, so you filled that need. To just talk about whatever you think would be helpful for our listeners to understand.
Yeah, so EnrichHER is a lending platform that helps women who have over $100,000 of revenue in their business access up to $250,000 in non-dilutive capital. So by non-dilutive, I mean we do not ask for equity stake in a business, and the company would have an offering of either a loan, a line of credit, or they have the opportunity to do a debt-based crowdfunding, which is a loan that investors can participate in lending to that entrepreneur. So we were able to launch in January of this year. We've received 300 plus applications so far. We're really excited about that. And our vision is to fund 10,000 businesses through our platform. And the whole goal behind this, and I call us the Dream Team, the EnrichHER Dream Team, is that a lot of women don't pursue their business ideas because they don't have access to capital. And the capital that women often do access are based on credit cards, and credit cards interest is really high. So women in the U.S. put $100 billion with a B dollars a year on credit cards because they don't have access to capital. So to solve this, we built a platform where a woman can apply online and get funded online. And we're just looking for as many women who need capital, who are qualified to apply with us.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that number, I just want to circle back on that number, 100 billion. Is that consumer debt as well, I'm assuming? Or that's just business
only
debt?
For business, it's such a high number. People, when I tell them, they're like, is that the correct? Yes. The actual demand for capital for small business is $7.5 trillion in the United States. And if you add in the $80 billion that venture capitalists invest in companies, the $120 billion between the SBA and banks, there's still only enough capital to supply less than 2% of the demand for capital. Small business is 30% of the GDP in this country, so that's why the numbers are so big. And small businesses are the leading indicator for employment, jobs, all the jazz. So it's a really big market that touches people in every single city in the country. And so, and the average business loan, just to put it in context, is $400,000 that people actually receive in general. So just nationwide in general. And a lot of times women, they hear these numbers and either don't apply, don't think we're worthy, because we've all heard that a guy will apply if they, meet 1 out of 10, and a woman like, oh, I don't have everything, I'm not going to do it. So we definitely wanted to have a woman-led financial place where, women can feel more comfortable, they can speak to us, and we can work with them if some of the criteria aren't at where they need to be now. Maybe they'll be there in 3 months or so. So we have that mission behind us to get more women funded so that they can, run successful businesses.
Fantastic. So a couple questions. You have a two-sided marketplace, right? You're attracting folks that want to loan money, essentially, and you're attracting folks who are seeking debt for their business.
Right.
And you said you have 100 folks that have applied since January. Is that on the entrepreneur side or the investor side? Talk a little bit about some of your numbers there.
Yeah, so we've had 300 women-led businesses apply for funding on our platform already this year. And luckily, we've actually signed 2 institutional lenders. So both of those lenders have over $200 million that is available to deploy into women-led businesses. And again, we have 2 of those. So I'm really, really excited. So if people either want a loan or a line of credit, we can potentially fund that within 48 hours. And separately, we have our crowdfunding platform. And the crowdfunding platform allows accredited, non-accredited investors, organizations, and what have you to lend directly to women on our platform. But our vision ultimately is to stand up our own funding. So our vision is to raise our own $20 million to start with so that we can lend to more companies that won't be approved by other traditional institutions.
Fantastic. So of those 300 that have applied, have you been able to connect the dots and fund some of those
Yeah,
so far?
We have approved 50 women so far for funding. Some of those women have decided that they want funding in a month or two, and they're not ready yet, but we're really excited with the numbers that we have. And our goal is to ramp up this year to fund 50 women-led businesses per week. So if anyone, is listening, wants to be one of those, feel free to apply, but that is our goal for this year.
Fantastic. So let's talk about secret sauce.
Okay.
So you have built, according to the description, an artificial intelligence-based scoring algorithm. Is that kind of your secret sauce, if you will? What pieces of this are proprietary to you?
Yeah, so AI was my specialty in school. I said I have all these engineering degrees, and when I heard about neural networks and fuzzy logic and all these genetic algorithms, my heart was beating so fast in college. I know a lot of people don't know what those things are. But basically, they allow you to figure out solutions to things that don't currently have a solution, right? So right now, most of the credit models that exist for standard banks do not include the research on women that says, hey, women actually pay back loans at a higher rate than men. Women-led businesses are more likely to succeed. Women are actually undersampled in credit models because women haven't historically received a lot of loans. So our goal is to design our own credit model and then license it to other financial institutions so that not only will we be able to fund more women, but other institutions will be able to have access to an algorithm that actually shows that women are a good risk to take. And so now there's been no innovation in the credit models for over 40 years for most financial institutions. And so we really believe that having this model that has the data behind it will really open up the market to more women.
That's great. I like it. So what's on the horizon for EnrichHER?
Yeah, so we are just excited to welcome as many women-led businesses that have over $100,000 that need funding to our community. We want to fund you. And we're also excited to bring lenders who say, you know what, I like to lend to women, whether you're accredited or not accredited, to our network. Also, we have an online community called EnrichHER Society, and we're really excited to start offering more courses throughout every month, and so that we can really provide a supportive ecosystem for women throughout the life cycle of their business.
I love it. Good stuff. Well, Roshawnna, if our listeners want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So the best way to get in touch with me is on LinkedIn. If you type in Roshawnna, Roshawna, that's me. I always come up first. There are a few Roshawnnas that exist. So that's enough information to find me online, but I'm really, really active on LinkedIn, so feel free to send me a message or connect with me there.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed learning more about your background and really excited about the EnrichHER platform. Looking forward to seeing your growth and seeing how we might be able to work together further.
Well, I thank you, and I really appreciate this opportunity to speak with you and to be on this amazing podcast.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of Flight Club, sponsored by Hera Hub. We look forward to sharing more success stories with you soon.